Hey guys, tonight we slip into the muddy boots of an American soldier in World War II, where every step feels like a gamble with fate. Picture yourself in 1942, standing in a dusty field, sweat stinging your eyes, as a drill sergeant barks orders that rattle your bones. The air smells of gunpowder and fear, and the weight of a rifle you barely know how to use digs into your shoulder. You're not a hero yet, just a kid from Ohio, or maybe Brooklyn, thrown into a war bigger than anything you've ever dreamed. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this, not without some serious luck and grit. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in a field in Georgia, or maybe Texas, at a training camp that feels like it was designed to break you. It's dawn, and the sun's barely up, but you're already drenched in sweat. Your uniform's scratchy wool that traps heat like a sadist's invention clings to your skin. The drill sergeant, a man with a voice like gravel and a face like a bulldog, screams at you to drop and give him 20. Your arms shake as you push against the dirt, and you're pretty sure the ground's harder than your high school math teacher's heart. This is boot camp, where the army takes soft civilians and tries to mold them into soldiers who can survive the chaos of war. Spoiler: not everyone makes it through this part, let alone the real thing. The days blur together in a haze of exhaustion. You run obstacle courses, barbed wire scraping your elbows as you crawl under it, imagining bullets overhead. You learn to fire an M1 Garand rifle, its kick bruising your shoulder every time. The weapon's heavy, 8 pounds of steel and wood, and you're told it's your best friend now. Yeah, right, your best friend doesn't jam when you're nervous. A mainstream fact: the M1 Garand was the standard issue rifle for American troops, praised for its reliability in battle despite its quirks. You fumble with it, trying to load the 8-round clip without pinching your thumb, a rookie mistake everyone makes at least once. Then there's the quirky stuff they don't put in history books. Some genius at camp decided to motivate you all by blasting patriotic music at 5 a.m., but the record player's stuck, so you wake up to Sweet Adeline on repeat. You're half convinced it's psychological warfare. By week 3, you're muttering the lyrics in your sleep. Historians still argue whether boot camp's brutal methods built better soldiers or just broke spirits faster. Either way, you're too tired to care. You march for miles, your boots rubbing blisters that feel like tiny betrayals. The sergeants teach you to salute, to stand at attention, to disassemble your rifle blindfolded. You're not sure if you're learning to fight or just to endure. Meals are a grim affair, greasy stew and hardtack biscuits that taste like cardboard's sad cousin. You joke with the guy next to you, Tommy from Chicago, about starting a restaurant after the war. "We'll call it Misery's Diner," he says, and you laugh, but it's a tired sound. Humor's your lifeline here, a way to keep the fear at bay. The nights are worse. You lie on a cot that creaks like it's mocking you, staring at the canvas tent above. You think about home, your mum's apple pie, your dog that always slept at your feet. You're 19, maybe 20, and the world feels impossibly big and cruel. The sergeants say you're training to liberate Europe, to stop a tyrant, but right now you just want to survive the next push-up. You overhear whispers about soldiers who cracked under pressure, sent home in shame. You wonder if you're next. By the end of boot camp, you're leaner, harder, but not fearless. You've learned to march in step, to shoot straight, to ignore the ache in your bones. They hand you a patch for your uniform, a proud little emblem, and you sew it on with clumsy stitches. You're a soldier now, they say. You don't feel like one. As you board a train to the coast, bound for a ship that'll take you across the ocean, you glance back at the camp. The dust, the shouts, the endless drills, they're behind you. But the real test is coming, and it's not going to be as kind as a sergeant's yell. You're standing on a creaking wooden platform at the port, your duffel bag slung over your shoulder, heavy as a bad decision. The air smells of salt and diesel, and the horizon's swallowed by a grey haze where sea meets sky. You're about to board a troop ship, but first, you've got to deal with the gear they've piled on you like you're a pack mule. Your uniform's still that itchy wool number from boot camp, and now they've added a steel helmet that wobbles on your head, a web belt stuffed with ammo pouches, and a backpack that feels like it's got half of Fort Benning inside. You're carrying maybe 80 pounds, and every step makes you question your life choices. A mainstream fact: the average American soldier in World War II lugged around 75 or 100 pounds of gear, depending on their role, which often led to fatigue before the fighting even started. You shuffle toward the gangplank, trying not to trip over your own boots. The guy behind you, Eddie from Philly, mutters, "If I drop this, I'm swimming home." You chuckle, but it's a weak effort. Your shoulders are screaming. The equipment's a mix of practical and absurd. Your entrenching tool, a tiny foldable shovel, is supposed to dig foxholes, but looks better suited for a kid's sandbox. You've got a gas mask too, because apparently the Germans might gas you, though nobody's used it much since the last war. Quirky tidbit: some soldiers stuffed their gas mask bags with extra socks or candy bars, figuring clean feet were more likely to save them than a mask. You're tempted to do the same, but the sergeant's watching like a hawk. Your rifle, that M1 Garand you bruised your shoulder learning to shoot, is slung across your chest. It's supposed to be your lifeline, but right now it's just another thing to keep from banging your knees. You've also got a bayonet, which feels like a medieval throwback, and a canteen that sloshes reassuringly against your hip. The helmet's the worst, though hot heavy, and always sliding over your eyes when you sweat. You try adjusting the strap, but it's like wrestling a grumpy turtle. Historians still argue whether the M1 helmet's design saved more lives than it caused neck strain, but you're leaning toward the neck strain camp. The troop ship looms ahead, a hulking metal beast painted in drab camouflage. You're herded up the gangplank with hundreds of other soldiers, all looking as weighed down and nervous as you feel. The deck's crowded, and you're elbow to elbow with strangers who smell of sweat and cheap cigarettes. Someone cracks a joke about the ship being a floating sardine can, and you manage a half smile. Humour's still your shield, though it's getting harder to wield. You find a spot near the railing, clutching your gear like it's the only thing keeping you grounded. The sea stretches out, endless and unforgiving, and you wonder if you'll ever see land again. Below deck, it's worse. They've crammed bunks into every inch of space, stacked so close you can smell the guy above you. Your bed is a canvas hammock that sways with the ship's motion, threatening to dump you onto the steel floor. You stow your gear in a locker, but it's a fight to make it all fit. The air's thick with the stench of oil and unwashed bodies, and the ship's engines hum like a distant thunderstorm. You try to focus on the weight of your gear, the way it digs into your shoulders, because it's easier than thinking about where you're headed. Europe's out there, and with it, the war you've been trained for but aren't ready to face. You spend hours checking your equipment, partly because you're supposed to, partly because it's something to do. You tighten straps, polish your bayonet, and double-check your ammo clips. The sergeants keep barking about readiness, but you're not sure what that means when you're still figuring out how to wear all this junk without falling over. One guy, a wiry kid from Texas, brags he can carry his pack all day. You call him out, saying he'll be crying by noon tomorrow, and the others laugh. It's a small victory, keeping the mood light, but it feels good. As the ship prepares to sail, you're ordered to a final inspection. You stand in line, gear rattling, while an officer with a clipboard eyes you like you're a used car. He points out a loose strap on your pack, and you fumble to fix it, cheeks burning. You're not a soldier yet. Not really, just a guy playing dress-up with too much stuff. The officer moves on, and you exhale, glancing at the horizon again. The weight of your gear is nothing compared to the weight of what's coming. You're headed to war, and no amount of straps or shovels can prepare you for that. You're on the deck of the troop ship now, the metal beneath your boots vibrating with the hum of engines. The coastline's long gone, swallowed by the endless grey of the Atlantic. and you're surrounded by water that looks cold enough to steal your soul. Your gear's stashed below, but you still feel its weight, like a ghost clinging to your back. The ship's crowded, a floating city of nervous soldiers, and the air smells of salt, sweat, and the faint tang of seasickness. You grip the railing, your knuckles pale, as the ship rolls over a swell. You're headed to Europe, and the war feels closer with every wave. Life on the troop ship is a special kind of misery. You're packed in tighter than a subway at rush hour, with barely enough room to breathe, let alone move. The bunks below deck are stacked 4 high, and you're lucky if you get one that doesn't sag like a tired hammock. Sleep's a gamble half the time. You're jolted awake by the ship's lurching or the guy next to you snoring like a busted chainsaw. A mainstream fact: over 1.5 million American troops crossed the Atlantic on ships like this during World War II, often in converted liners or cargo vessels that weren't built for comfort. You're starting to think comfort is just a myth. Days blend into a monotony of drills and waiting. You line up for inspections, your uniform damp from sea spray, while officers shout about discipline. They make you practice lifeboat drills, which is less reassuring than it sounds. The lifeboats look flimsy, and you're not convinced they'd survive a storm, let alone a U-boat attack. Speaking of which, the threat of German submarines keeps everyone on edge. A quirky tidbit: some ships played loud music over the speakers to boost morale, but the scratchy rendition of Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy at 6 a.m. feels more like torture than inspiration. You joke with Eddie from Philly that if a U-boat hits, you'll swim faster to escape the music than the torpedo. He laughs, but his eyes dart to the horizon. Historians still argue whether the constant drills on troop ships built confidence or just exhausted soldiers before combat. You're leaning toward exhausted. Your legs ache from standing in formation, and your stomach's doing flips from the ship's constant rocking. Meals don't help: greasy stew, canned beans, and bread so hard you could use it as a weapon. You're handed a tin plate and a spoon that's seen better days, and you eat standing up, swaying with the ship. Someone cracks a joke about the cook being a German spy, sabotaging you with every bite. You manage a grin, but the food sits like a rock in your gut. Nights are the worst. Below deck, the air's thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and engine oil. You lie in your bunk, the canvas creaking, and listen to the ship groan like it's as tired as you are. The guy above you mumbles in his sleep, something about a girl back home, and you wonder if you'll ever see your own family again. To pass the time, you pull out a deck of cards some guy from Texas brought aboard. You play poker with Eddie and a few others, betting cigarettes since nobody's got cash. You're terrible at it, but it keeps your mind off the ocean outside and what's waiting across it. The officers try to keep you busy with lectures about the enemy. You sit cross-legged on the deck, half listening to a captain explain German tactics. He says the Nazis are tough but beatable, and you nod like you believe him. Truth is, you're more worried about the seasickness than the enemy right now. You've already seen a guy lose his lunch over the side, and you're praying you're not next. To distract yourself, you fidget with your dog tags, the metal cool against your fingers. They've got your name, serial number, and blood type stamped on them, a grim reminder of what might be coming. As the days drag on, you start to notice the little things that keep you sane. A sailor shares a story about his kid brother, and you swap one about your dog back home. You laugh when Eddie tries to imitate the captain's accent and gets caught. These moments, small as they are, feel like lifelines. The ship keeps moving, closer to Europe, closer to the war. You stand at the railing again, watching the waves, and wonder if you'll ever feel steady ground under your feet again. The Atlantic's vast, but it's nothing compared to the unknown waiting for you on the other side. You're crouched in a landing craft, the cold metal floor slick beneath your boots as the Normandy coast looms like a grey scar on the horizon. The sea's choppy, and the boat pitches, sending your stomach lurching. Around you, soldiers clutch their rifles, faces pale, some muttering prayers, others staring blankly at the waves. The air smells of diesel and salt, with a faint whiff of vomit from the guy who couldn't keep his breakfast down. It's June 1944 D. day's aftermath, and you're part of the follow-up waves hitting the beaches. Your first taste of combat is coming, and it's not going to be gentle. The craft hits the shore with a jolt, and the ramp drops, splashing icy water over your legs. You stumble forward, boots sinking into wet sand, as shouts and gunfire erupt around you. The beach is chaos, smoke hangs thick. Barbed wire glints in the dawn light, and craters pockmark the ground like the moon's uglier cousin. A mainstream fact. The Normandy invasion involved over 156,000 Allied troops on the 6th of June alone. But the weeks after saw thousands more like you, thrown into the meat grinder to hold the line. You're not sure if you're brave or just too scared to think. You scramble for cover behind a chunk of concrete, your heart hammering so loud it drowns out the distant artillery. Bullets whine overhead, and you fumble with your M1 Garand, fingers clumsy from adrenaline. You've trained for this, but training didn't prepare you for the noise, the deafening roar of explosions, the screams, the way the ground shakes like it's angry. You peek out, spotting German bunkers perched on cliffs, their machine guns spitting death. You fire back, more instinct than aim, and the rifle's kick jars your shoulder. You're not even sure if you hit anything. A quirky tidbit. Some soldiers carried Lucky Charms into Battle Rabbit's feet, photos, even a rolled-up comic book tucked in a pocket. You've got a dime with a hole drilled through it, a gift from your little sister, dangling from your dog tags. You touch it now, half believing it'll keep you alive, half knowing it's just a piece of metal. Historians still argue whether these superstitions boosted morale or just distracted from the terror. You're too busy ducking to care. Your squad leader, a grizzled sergeant named Malone, yells for you to move. You sprint toward a ditch, sand spraying around you, and dive in, scraping your knees. Eddie from Philly lands beside you, panting, his helmet crooked. "This is worse than my mom's cooking," he gasps, and you force a laugh, because if you don't, you might scream. Humor's your anchor, but it's slipping. You crawl forward, keeping low, as Malone barks orders. The objective's a hedgerow 100 yards inland, but it might as well be the moon. The hedgerows are a nightmare thick, ancient walls of earth and roots, perfect for German ambushes. You hear a tank rumble nearby, an Allied Sherman, but it's stuck in the sand, useless for now. You push through the mud, your gear dragging like an anchor. A machine gun chatters, and you drop flat, heart pounding. You're not a hero, you're just trying to not die. You glance at Eddie, who's muttering something about never signing up for this. You want to agree, but your mouth's too dry to speak. Night falls, not that it helps. The dark just makes everything scarier. You're in a shallow foxhole now, dug with that flimsy entrenching tool from boot camp. The air's damp, and your uniform's soaked through, clinging like a second skin. You hear whispers of German patrols nearby, and every rustle in the bushes makes you grip your rifle tighter. You're supposed to sleep in shifts, but sleep's a joke when you're waiting for a grenade to roll into your hole. You think about home, about that diner you and Tommy joked about opening. It feels like a dream from another life. By dawn you're still alive, which feels like a miracle. The gunfire's quieter now, but the tension's not. You move out again, following Malone through more hedgerows, your eyes scanning for snipers. You're not sure how you're still moving, but you are. Maybe it's the dime, maybe it's Eddie's bad jokes, or maybe it's just that you don't have a choice. Combat's not what you expected, it's louder, messier, and way too real. You're starting to realize survival's less about skill and more about dumb luck. You're crouched in a trench, the earth damp and cold against your knees, as rain drizzles down, turning the ground into a slimy mess. The Normandy hedgerows are behind you now, but this trench feels like a different kind of trap. It's narrow, barely wide enough for two men, and the walls are crumbling, oozing mud that clings to your boots like glue. The air smells of wet dirt and something sharper, maybe cordite, maybe fear. Rats scurry along the trench's edge, bold as brass, and you swear one's eyeing your last biscuit. You're deep in the European theatre, and trench life is teaching you that war's not just about fighting, it's about surviving the moments in between. The trench is your home now, a miserable slice of earth you share with Eddie and a few others from your squad. You've got your rifle propped against the wall, its barrel caked with mud, and your gears piled in a corner, damp and heavy. A mainstream fact. Trenches were a hallmark of World War I, but in World War II, they were still common in static battles, especially in Normandy's Bocage country, where soldiers dug in to hold ground against counterattacks. You're learning fast that digging in means more than just a hole, it's a fight against nature itself. The rain doesn't stop, and neither do the rats. They're everywhere, nibbling at your rations, your pack, even your boots if you're not careful. A quirky tidbit. Some soldiers swore the rats could predict artillery barrages, scurrying away minutes before shells hit. You're not sure if it's true, but you watch them now, half expecting them to bolt. One skitters over your foot, and you kick it away, muttering about starting a rat-trapping business after the war. Eddie chuckles, saying, "You'd make more money than the army pays us." It's a weak joke, but it's enough to keep you from sinking into the mud entirely. Your days are a grind of waiting and watching. You peer over the trench's edge, scanning for movement, your eyes burning from lack of sleep. The Germans are out there, hidden in their own trenches or behind hedgerows, and every shadow feels like a threat. Artillery shells scream overhead, landing close enough to shake the ground and send dirt cascading over you. You duck, heart racing, and check that dime around your neck, the one from your sister. It's silly, but it's yours. Historians still argue whether trench warfare in World War II was as grueling as in the First War. But right now, you'd bet your last cigarette it's just as bad. Nights are colder, the damp seeping into your bones. You wrap yourself in a thin blanket, but it's no match for the chill. Sleep comes in fits, interrupted by the crack of distant gunfire or the low drone of planes overhead. You take turns on watch, sitting on a crate, staring into the dark until your eyes play tricks on you. Once, you swear you see a German patrol, but it's just a bush swaying in the wind. Eddie teases you about it, calling you Eagle Eyes, and you fire back that at least you're not snoring loud enough to wake Berlin. The squad laughs, and for a moment, the trench feels less like a grave. Food's another battle. You're given K rations, little cardboard boxes with canned meat that taste like regret and crackers that could double as coasters. You trade your cigarettes for a chocolate bar, but it's gone in 2 bites. Water's scarce, and your canteen's half empty because the supply truck got delayed again. You dream of a hot meal, maybe your mum's meatloaf, but you settle for a soggy biscuit and a sip of muddy water. You joke with the guys about opening a trench cafe serving eau de mud and rat surprise. It's not funny, but it's better than silence. The trench is a world of its own, a muddy limbo where time drags. You carve your initials into the dirt wall, a small act of defiance against the war's chaos. You think about home, about the letters you haven't had time to write. You're not sure how much longer you can stand the mud, the rats, the waiting. But you have to, because the alternative is worse. The war's out there, beyond the trench's edge, and you're not ready to face it again, not yet. For now, you hunker down, clutching your rifle, and hope the rats don't get to your biscuits before you do. You're still in that muddy trench, the damp earth soaking through your uniform as you sit on an ammo crate, trying to choke down another K ration. The meal is a can of something labelled meat and vegetable stew, but it tastes like someone boiled regret and canned it. Your stomach grumbles, not from hunger, but from betrayal. The rain stopped, thank goodness, but the air's thick with the smell of wet wool and unwashed bodies. Somewhere nearby, a guy's trying to whistle Yankee Doodle, but it's off-key and makes you wince. You're in the grind of war, and food, or the lack of it, is starting to feel like its own battlefield. Rations are your lifeline, but they're also your daily punishment. A mainstream fact. American soldiers in World War II relied heavily on K rations, compact meals designed for portability, providing about 800 calories a day when you could get all 3 packs, breakfast, dinner and supper. Problem is, you're lucky if you get 2, and even then, they're barely edible. The breakfast pack might have a canned egg product that looks like yellow cement, while supper's got those crackers you're pretty sure could survive the war better than you. You chew slowly, trying to trick your brain into thinking it's food, but your taste buds aren't fooled. Then there's the quirky stuff nobody warned you about. Some guys get so desperate for flavor they start trading for weird combinations, like mixing the instant coffee powder with the sugar packet and eating it dry, like it's candy. You tried it once, on a dare from Eddie, and it was like licking a caffeinated sandbox. You told him he owes you a steak dinner after the war for that one, and he just grinned, saying, "Only if we're both still breathing." You laugh, but it's a hollow sound because the hunger's real, and it's gnawing at you. Historians still argue whether the K, ration's poor quality, affected soldiers' morale more than their physical health. You're pretty sure it's both. Your body's leaner now, not from exercise, but from the fact that you're burning more energy than these measly rations provide. You're always hungry, and it's not the missed lunch kind, it's a deep, aching need that makes you dream of your mum's kitchen. You can almost smell her Sunday roast, but then you open your eyes, and it's just the trench again, with its mud and misery. You're supposed to eat in shifts, but there's no real schedule when supplies are spotty. Sometimes a truck makes it through with fresh bread or canned peaches. And it's like Christmas morning. You and the squad tear into it, passing the cans around, savouring every bite. Other days, you're stuck with the same old K rations, and you start naming the crackers after the sergeants you hate. "Here's Sergeant Malone," you say, snapping one in half, and Eddie snorts, nearly choking on his coffee. It's a small rebellion, but it keeps you sane. Water's another problem. Your canteen's never full enough, and the water you do get tastes like it's been sitting in a rusty pipe. You've heard stories of guys drinking from streams, but that's a gamble with dysentery, and you've seen what that does to a man. You ration your sips, swishing each one around your mouth like it's fine wine. One guy, a kid from Iowa, swears he can taste the difference between French and Belgian mud in the water. You roll your eyes and tell him he's full of it, but you're secretly jealous of his imagination. The hunger makes everything sharper: the cold, the fear, the waiting. You sit there, picking at the last of your crackers, listening to the distant rumble of artillery. You think about home, about the diner you and Tommy dreamed of opening back in boot camp. You'd serve real food, not this garbage. You'd have pie, coffee that doesn't taste like dirt, maybe even a jukebox. It's a nice thought, but it fades fast when a shell lands close enough to shake the trench. You shove the empty ration box into your pack and grab your rifle. Food's a luxury, but survival's the goal, and you're not sure you're winning either fight right now. You're huddled in the trench, the dim light of a cloudy afternoon casting shadows on the muddy walls. Your fingers are numb from the cold, and you're clutching a crumpled letter from home, the paper soft from being read 100 times. The words are smudged, but you know them by heart, your mum's handwriting, telling you about the garden, your dad's bad jokes, your sister's new bike. It's a lifeline to a world that feels like a dream now, one you're not sure you'll ever get back to. The trench smells of damp earth and cigarette smoke, and somewhere down the line, a guy's coughing like he's trying to hack up his soul. Letters are all you've got to keep the war from swallowing you whole. Mail call is the one moment everyone lives for. A mainstream fact, the US. Army's postal service in World War II was a massive operation, delivering over 2 billion pieces of mail to soldiers overseas by 1945, boosting morale when supplies and hope were low. When the mailbag shows up, it's like a holiday. You crowd around, elbowing for position, praying your name's called. Today, you're lucky a single envelope with your name in your mum's careful script. You tuck it inside your jacket, close to your heart, and wait for a quiet moment to read it, away from the guy's teasing. But quiet moments are rare. You're back in the trench, sitting on a crate, unfolding the letter with hands that shake from cold or maybe nerves. The paper's thin, almost see-through, and you're careful not to tear it. Your mum writes about normal things, how the neighbour's dog got loose again, how she baked cookies for the church social. It's mundane, but it's everything. You can almost smell the sugar and vanilla, a far cry from the K rations you're choking down. A quirky tidbit. Some soldiers got care packages with bizarre stuff, like homemade socks that didn't fit, or fruitcake so dense it could stop a bullet. You're still waiting for your own package, hoping for something edible. Reading the letter, you feel a pang of homesickness so sharp it's like a punch. You write back when you can, scrawling on whatever paper you find, your pencil blunt from overuse. You tell your family you're fine, because what else can you say? You don't mention the mud, the rats, or the way your hands shake when shells land too close. You joke about the food, saying you're starting a recipe book called 101 Ways to Hate K Rations. Eddie overhears and says you should add a chapter on how to trade cigarettes for something not awful. You laugh, but it's a tired sound, like air leaking from a tire. Historians still argue whether letters from home were a lifeline or a cruel reminder of what soldiers might never see again. You're not sure where you stand. The letters keep you going, but they also make the distance feel infinite. You've got a photo too. Tucked in your pocket, a grainy shot of your family at a picnic last summer. You look at it when nobody's watching, tracing their faces, trying to remember what it felt like to be there. The guy next to you, a quiet kid from Kansas, catches you staring and offers his own photo, a girl he hopes to marry. You swap stories, and for a moment, the trench feels less lonely. Writing back is harder than reading. You sit with a stubby pencil, trying to find words that won't worry them. You tell your sister her dime's still around your neck, your lucky charm from that first day in combat. You don't tell her how often you touch it, like it's the only thing keeping you alive. The mail truck comes and goes irregularly, and you're never sure if your letters make it home. You hand your envelope to the runner, a kid who looks too young for this, and watch him disappear into the haze. You hope your words find their way, just like you hope you will. The trench is quiet tonight, or as quiet as it gets with the distant rumble of artillery. You fold the letter carefully, tucking it back inside your jacket. You think about writing another, but your hands are too cold, and the words won't come. Instead, you lean back, staring at the sky, and wonder if your family's looking at the same stars. It's a small comfort, but it's enough to keep you from falling apart, at least for now. You're crouched in the trench, the cold seeping through your boots as you lean against the muddy wall, rifle resting across your knees. The air's thick with the smell of smoke and wet earth, but there's something else today, a rare moment of calm, no shells screaming overhead, just the low murmur of voices from your squad. You're surrounded by the guys you've been through hell with, faces you didn't know a few months ago but now feel like family. There's Eddie from Philly, still cracking wise despite the bags under his eyes, and the quiet kid from Kansas who's finally started talking. In the chaos of war, these bonds are what keep you grounded, stronger than any weapon in your hands. The squad's your lifeline, a ragtag bunch thrown together by circumstance but welded by survival. A mainstream fact: the US Army in World War II relied on small unit cohesion, with squads of 8-12 men forming the backbone of infantry operations, often functioning as a single unit under fire. You've learned to move together, to cover each other, to know who's likely to freeze and who'll charge head first. Eddie's the joker, always quick with a quip, but you've seen him drag a wounded guy to safety without a second thought. Kansas, whose real name is Henry, is the steady one, always checking his rifle twice before a patrol. You're not sure where you fit, but they trust you, and that's enough. You're sharing a rare cigarette, passing it around like it's a holy relic. The smoke curls up, mixing with the mist, and you take a drag, savouring the burn. A quirky tidbit: soldiers sometimes used cigarettes as currency, trading them for everything from extra rations to a turn at the best bunk in the trench. You've seen Eddie barter a pack for a bar of chocolate, then eat it in 2 bites like a king. You joke that he's running a black market, and he winks, saying, "Gotta fund my retirement somehow." The laugh feels good, like a warm sip of coffee on a freezing morning. Historians still argue whether these tight-knit squads made soldiers fight harder or just made the losses hurt more. You've seen both sides already. Last week, you lost Tommy from Chicago, the guy who dreamed of that diner with you back in boot camp. A shell hit his position, and just like that, he was gone. The squad didn't talk for a day, just moved through the motions, but you felt the weight of it, like a hole in your chest. You don't say his name now, but you all feel it. Eddie slaps your shoulder sometimes, like he's checking you're still here, and you do the same for him. You're on a patrol today, moving through a shattered village, your squad fanned out in a V shape, your point man, eyes scanning for snipers, your boots crunching on broken cobblestones. Henry's to your left, his rifle steady, while Eddie's behind, muttering about the lack of decent bars around here. You spot a glint in a window and signal to drop. Everyone hits the dirt, hearts pounding. It's just a broken mirror, but the scare binds you closer. You whisper, "Nice one, Eagle Eyes," to yourself, remembering Eddie's old jab, and you hear him stifle a laugh. These moments, tense as they are, make you feel alive. Back in the trench, you swap stories to pass the time. Henry talks about his farm, how he misses the smell of hay instead of mud. You tell them about your dog, how he'd chase his tail like it was his life's mission. Eddie spins a tale about a girl he swears he'll marry, though you're pretty sure he's making half of it up. You laugh anyway, because it's better than thinking about tomorrow's patrol. You pull out that dime from your sister, rubbing it between your fingers, and Henry notices. He shows you a rabbit's foot, says it's kept him lucky. You don't believe in luck anymore, but you nod, because it's not about the charm, it's about the guy next to you. The squad's not perfect. You argue sometimes over who ate the last cracker or who's hogging the blanket. But when the shells start falling, you move as one, covering each other's backs without a word. You're starting to think you'd die for these guys, and that scares you more than the Germans. The war's still out there, waiting, but right now, in this muddy trench with these knuckleheads, you feel like you might just make it through another day. You're trudging through a snow-dusted forest, your breath puffing out in clouds as the cold bites through your wool coat. It's December 1944, and you're in the Ardennes, caught in the Battle of the Bulge, where winter's as much your enemy as the Germans. Your boots crunch on frozen ground, each step a struggle against the ice that's caked onto your laces. The air smells of pine and gunpowder, and your fingers ache inside threadbare gloves, gripping your M1 Garand like it's the only thing keeping you warm. The squad's with you, Eddie, Henry, and the others moving quietly, eyes scanning the trees for movement. The cold's brutal, and it's only getting worse. Winter in the Ardennes is a beast. A mainstream fact, the Battle of the Bulge, launched by Germany as a desperate counter-offensive, saw some of the harshest winter conditions American troops faced, with temperatures dropping below zero and snow piling up to your knees. You're not prepared for this. Not really. Your overcoat's too thin, and the army-issued scarf around your neck feels like a bad joke. You've layered every sock you own, but your toes still feel like they're auditioning for an ice sculpture. You joke with Eddie that you'll trade your rifle for a hot toddy, and he snorts, saying, "Good luck finding a bar out here, pal." The laugh's weak, but it's something. The cold messes with everything. Your rifle jams if you don't keep it dry, and your canteen's frozen solid, forcing you to melt snow in your mess tin over a tiny fire. Even that's risky smoke draws snipers like moths to a flame. A quirky tidbit. Some soldiers stuffed newspapers inside their jackets for insulation, swearing it worked better than the army's gear. You've got a crumpled letter from home tucked against your chest, not for warmth, but because it feels like it might keep you going. You're not sure if it's helping, but you're too cold to care. Historians still argue whether the army's failure to supply proper winter gear cost more lives than German bullets during the Bulge. You're leaning toward the cold being the real killer. Your squad's been on the move for days, pushing through snowdrifts to hold a shaky line against the German advance. You're exhausted, your legs heavy as lead, and the frostbite's starting to creep in. Henry's got a cough that won't quit, and you're worried it's more than just the cold. You keep an eye on him, because that's what the squad does, watches out for each other, even when you're all half frozen. Nights are the worst. You dig a foxhole in the snow, your entrenching tool chipping at the frozen ground like it's mocking you. You huddle with Eddie and Henry, sharing a single blanket, your bodies pressed close for warmth. The wind howls through the trees, and you hear the distant rumble of tanks nobody's sure if they're ours or theirs. You take turns on watch, staring into the dark, your breath freezing on your scarf. Once, you think you see a German patrol, but it's just a deer, its eyes glinting in the moonlight. You whisper to Eddie, "Better shot than me," and he chuckles, his teeth chattering. Humor's still your lifeline, even if it's frozen stiff. Food's a distant memory. The K-rations are frozen now, and you have to thaw the cans over a fire, which takes forever and tastes no better. You dream of hot soup, the kind your mom made with carrots and warmth you could feel in your bones. Instead, you're sucking on a piece of hard candy from a ration pack, pretending it's a feast. Eddie trades you half a cigarette for a bite of your chocolate bar, and you both agree it's the worst deal in history. You're hungry, cold, and scared, but you keep moving because stopping feels like giving up. The Germans are pushing hard, and you're caught in a forest that feels like it's conspiring against you. You hear stories of entire units cut off, surrounded in the snow. Your squad's holding a ridge, a pathetic strip of high ground, and you're told to dig in. You work until your hands bleed, the cold numbing the pain. You think about that dime from your sister, still dangling from your dog tags, and wonder if it's keeping you alive or just mocking your odds. The cold's relentless, but so's the squad. You lean on each other, because out here, in this frozen hell, it's all you've got. You're stumbling through a snowy path, your boots sinking into the drifts as you follow a medic to a field hospital tucked behind a shattered barn. The air's sharp with the smell of antiseptic and something metallic you try not to think about. Your squad's been in the bulge for weeks, and today, Henry's cough turned into something worse, his face pale, his breathing ragged. You're not wounded, but you're here to check on him, your rifle slung over your shoulder, the cold still biting through your gloves. The hospital's a grim place, a canvas tent lit by flickering lanterns, filled with the moans of men who've seen too much. You're about to learn what happens when war and medicine collide in the middle of nowhere. The field hospital is chaos barely held together. A mainstream fact. During World War II, US Army field hospitals handled over 2 million casualties, often under brutal conditions, with medics performing miracles with limited supplies. You step inside, and the warmth hits you like a wave, but it's not comforting. It's heavy with the stench of blood and iodine. Stretchers line the tent, men wrapped in bandages, some quiet, some crying out. You spot Henry on a cot, his eyes half closed, a medic checking his pulse. You want to go to him, but a nurse with tired eyes shoos you back, saying only one visitor at a time. Medical care here is crude, a far cry from the hospitals back home. The medics work fast, stitching wounds with thread that looks like it belongs in a sewing kit, not a human body. They've got sulfur powder to fight infection, but it's running low, and the morphine's rationed for the worst cases. A quirky tidbit. Some medics carried whiskey in their kits, not for drinking but to clean wounds when supplies ran dry. You overhear a doctor muttering about using it yesterday, and you joke to Eddie, who's waiting outside, that maybe you should have been a medic for the free booze. He snorts, but his eyes are on the tent, worried for Henry. Historians still argue whether the field hospital's speed saved more lives than their lack of resources cost. You're not sure, but watching a medic saw through a man's leg with a hand-cranked blade makes you think resources matter. You wince, turning away, and focus on Henry. He's got pneumonia, the medic says, probably from the cold and exhaustion. They've got him on a cot with a blanket, but the tent's drafty, and you can see his breath in the air. You slip him your scarf, the one your mum sent, and he manages a weak smile, saying, "You're gonna freeze, dummy." You shrug, because what else can you do? The tent's a revolving door of pain. You see guys with shrapnel wounds, frostbite so bad their toes are black, and burns from a tank that caught fire. The medics move like ghosts, their hands steady but their faces hollow. You're told to wait outside, so you stand in the snow, kicking at a drift to keep warm. Eddie's there, lighting a cigarette with shaking hands. You both talk about Henry, about how he's tougher than he looks, about how you'll all be laughing about this over beers someday. It's a lie you both need, and you lean into it, joking that Henry's cough sounds like his tractor back home. The laugh feels fragile, but it's something. You're allowed back in later, and Henry's awake, sipping broth from a tin cup. He looks small under the blanket, but his eyes are clearer. The medic says he'll pull through if they can keep him warm. You sit by his cot, telling him about the time your dog ate your mum's pie, hoping to keep his spirits up. He chuckles, then coughs, and you feel that pang again, the fear of losing another piece of your squad. You think about Tommy, gone in a flash during that shelling, and you grip that dime around your neck, wishing it could protect them all. As you leave the tent, the medic hands you a bandage for a cut you didn't even notice on your hand. It's nothing, but it's a reminder of how close you are to being on one of those cots. You step back into the snow, the cold wrapping around you like a fist. Henry's still alive, and that's enough for now. You rejoin Eddie, and you both head back to the line, the hospital's grim light fading behind you. The war's waiting, and you've got to keep moving, no matter how heavy it feels. You're crouched behind a crumbling stone wall, your breath shallow as you peer through a gap at the German lines across a frost-covered field. It's early 1945, and the Battle of the Bulge is grinding on, but today's quieter, a tense standoff rather than a firefight. The air smells of snow and gun oil, and your hands tremble. Not just from the cold, but from the weight of knowing one wrong move could end you. Your squad's with you, Eddie whispering curses under his breath. Henry still weak but back from the hospital, his cough a low rasp. You're facing the enemy up close now, not just shadows in the distance, and every second feels like a gamble with your life. These encounters are nerve-wracking, a game of cat and mouse played with rifles and lives. A mainstream fact, during World War II, small-scale skirmishes and standoffs were common between major battles, with American and German patrols often clashing in no man's land to test each other's positions. You're on one of those patrols, sent to scout a German outpost in a shattered village. The houses are skeletons, roofs gone, walls pocked with bullet holes. You move low, your M1 Garand heavy in your hands, your eyes scanning for the glint of a helmet or the flicker of movement. You're not here to fight, not really just to see what's out there. But the Germans have other ideas. You spot them first, a patrol of 5, moving through the ruins, their grey coats blending with the snow. You signal to Eddie and Henry, and your squad freezes, hearts pounding. The Germans haven't seen you yet, but they're close, maybe 50 yards, their voices a low murmur in the wind. You catch a glimpse of one, a kid not much older than you, his face tired and drawn. For a second, you wonder if he's got a letter from home in his pocket too. Then you shake it off, thinking like that gets you killed. A quirky tidbit. Some soldiers claimed they'd trade cigarettes with the enemy during rare, unspoken truces, passing smokes across the lines like a bizarre peace offering. You're not that desperate or crazy yet. Historians still argue whether these fleeting encounters humanized the enemy or just made soldiers more paranoid. You're leaning toward paranoid. Your sergeant, Malone, whispers to hold position, but your fingers itch on the trigger. The Germans move closer, and you hear the crunch of their boots on snow. You're hidden, but one wrong sound, a cough, a slipped rifle could give you away. Eddie's next to you, his face tight, and you can tell he's fighting the urge to bolt. You nudge him, mouthing, "Easy, wise guy," and he glares but stays put. Humor's still your shield, even if it's paper thin. The standoff stretches on, minutes feeling like hours. You're close enough to see the steam of their breath, and you wonder if they're as scared as you are. Malone signals to fall back, and you creep away, inch by inch, your boots silent on the snow. But then Henry coughs, a sharp hack that echoes like a gunshot. The Germans freeze, heads snapping toward you. You hold your breath, praying they'll think it's an animal. One of them raises his rifle, and your heart stops. Then, miraculously, they move on, disappearing into the ruins. You exhale, your legs jelly, and Eddie mutters, "That's my cardio for the week." You manage a shaky grin, but your hands won't stop shaking. Back at the line, you're debriefed in a half-collapsed barn. Malone says you did good, but you don't feel it. You keep replaying that moment, Henry's cough, the German's rifle. You pull out your sister's dime, rubbing it like it's the reason you're still here. The squad's quiet tonight, the close call sitting heavy. You joke with Henry that he's got to stop serenading the enemy with his lungs, and he flips you off. But there's a smile there. It's small, but it's enough. These encounters are changing you. You're starting to see the Germans not just as targets, but as men tired, cold, and scared like you. It doesn't make you hate them less, but it makes the war feel messier. You lie in your foxhole, the cold seeping in, and think about home, about that diner you and Tommy dreamed of. You wonder if you'll ever get there, or if you'll be stuck in these frozen fields forever, playing hide and seek with death. You're walking through a village, or what's left of it, your boots crunching on shattered cobblestones dusted with snow. It's spring 1945, and the tide's turning. Allied forces are pushing deeper into Europe, liberating towns one by one. The air smells of charred wood and something sweeter, like bread baking nearby. The villagers, gaunt but hopeful, emerge from cellars and ruined homes, their faces a mix of relief and wariness. You're with your squad, rifles slung low, not expecting a fight today. For once, you're not the hunter or the hunted, you're the one bringing freedom, and it feels strange, almost heavy. The village is a patchwork of destruction and life. A mainstream fact, by 1945, American troops had helped liberate hundreds of towns across France, Belgium, and Germany, often greeted as heroes by civilians who'd endured years of occupation. You see it now, old women with kerchiefs offering you cups of watery soup, kids with dirt-streaked faces tugging at your sleeve for candy. You dig into your pack, pulling out a chocolate bar from a K-ration, and hand it to a girl with braids. Her eyes light up, and you feel a pang, thinking of your sister back home. You're not sure if you're a soldier or a Santa Claus today. The locals are generous, despite having nothing. A quirky tidbit. In some liberated villages, civilians would trade homemade wine or knitted scarves for American cigarettes, creating a makeshift economy in the rubble. You swap a couple of smokes for a small loaf of bread, still warm, and it's the best thing you've tasted since boot camp. Eddie, ever the charmer, tries flirting with a French girl, using broken phrases he learned from a phrasebook. She laughs, and you tease him, saying, "Stick to Philly girls, Casanova." He grins, but you both know it's just a moment's distraction from the war. Historians still argue whether these interactions boosted soldiers' morale or made them long for home even more. You're torn. Every smile from a villager lifts you, but it also reminds you of what you're missing. You pass a church, its steeple half gone, where a priest is handing out apples. You take one, biting into it, the juice sharp and sweet. It's a small miracle in a place where miracles feel rare. The villagers tell stories through a translator, tales of hiding from the Germans, of ration cards and secret radios. You listen, nodding, but their words feel like echoes of a life you can't fully grasp. You're billeted in a barn for the night, the hay scratching through your blanket. The villagers bring blankets and more bread, and you're grateful, though you wish you could give them more than candy and cigarettes. You pull out a letter from home, rereading your mum's words about the garden blooming. You share the story with Henry, who's feeling stronger, his cough quieter now. He talks about his farm, how he'd plant apple trees if he makes it back. You joke that you'll open a diner next to his orchard, serving apple pie. The squad laughs, and for a moment, the barn feels like a home. But the war's not gone. You hear distant artillery, a reminder that the front's not far. Some villagers whisper about German stragglers hiding in the woods, and you tighten your grip on your rifle. You're supposed to feel like a liberator, but you're still a soldier. And danger's never far. A kid offers you a drawing, a crude sketch of an American flag, and you tuck it into your pocket next to your sister's dime. It's another weight, another reason to keep going. As you move out the next morning, the villagers wave, some crying, some shouting thanks in languages you barely understand. You wave back, your throat tight. You're not sure if you're saving them or just passing through, but their faces stick with you. Eddie nudges you, saying, "We're practically celebrities now." You roll your eyes, but you feel it a flicker of pride, mixed with the ache of knowing you might not see home as easily as these folks see theirs. The road ahead stretches toward more villages, more fights, but for now, you carry their gratitude like a warmth against the cold. You're slumped in a foxhole, the earth cold and damp against your back, your rifle propped beside you like a tired companion. The spring of 1945 is creeping in. but the air still carries a chill, and the distant rumble of artillery never quite fades. Your squad's nearby, Eddie whittling a stick with his bayonet, Henry scribbling in a tattered notebook. You're all quieter these days, worn thin by the endless march of war. The things you've seen, villages burned, friends lost, those close calls with German patrols, have left marks you can't see but feel in every pause, every restless night. The war's grinding you down, and it's not just your body that's tired, it's your mind, fraying like the edges of your uniform. The psychological toll is real, though nobody talks about it much. A mainstream fact. During World War II, the US Army recognized combat fatigue, or shell shock, as a serious issue, with over 1 million soldiers experiencing symptoms like anxiety, insomnia, or uncontrollable shaking, often leading to temporary or permanent removal from the front. You're starting to understand why. You flinch at sudden noises now, even if it's just a branch snapping. Sleep's a stranger when you close your eyes. You see Tommy's face, or that kid in the village who looked too much like your sister. You're not sure if you're losing it, but you're definitely not the same kid who left boot camp. There's quirky stuff too, ways soldiers cope that sound absurd out of context. Some guys talk to their rifles like they're old friends. Others sing nursery rhymes to calm their nerves. You've caught yourself humming Twinkle Twinkle Little Star during a bombardment, and when Eddie overheard, he teased you for a week, calling you nursery rhyme. You shot back that his whittling's just as weird, carving sticks into nothing like he's auditioning for a carpenter's job. He laughed, but it's hollow. You both know these quirks are just band-aids on a wound that's deeper than any medic can fix. Historians still argue whether shell shock was underdiagnosed, or if the Army's tough-it-out culture made things worse. You're pretty sure it's the latter. The officers tell you to keep moving, to focus on the mission, but your mind's a battlefield of its own. You dream of home, but it's fuzzy now, like a radio signal fading out. You pull out your sister's dime, rubbing it until your thumbs sore, but even that feels heavier. You're scared to admit it, but sometimes you freeze up, your hands shaking when you need them steady. Last week, during a patrol, you hesitated to fire at a shadow, and Malone chewed you out. You didn't tell him it wasn't fear of the enemy, it was fear of yourself. The squad notices, though they don't say much. Henry hands you a cigarette without a word, and Eddie stops joking about your aim for a day. You're grateful, but it doesn't fix the fog in your head. You try writing a letter home, but the words come out wrong, too cheerful or too dark. You tear it up, scattering the pieces in the mud. You joke with the guys about starting a foxhole therapy club, and Henry snorts, saying he'd be the worst shrink ever. It's a fleeting laugh, but it pulls you back from the edge, if only for a moment. Days blur into nights, each one a test of how much you can take. You're on watch now, staring into the dark, your eyes playing tricks. Every rustle is a German, every shadow a threat. You think about Tommy, about the village kids, about the diner you'll never open. The war's not just out there, it's inside you, clawing at your thoughts. You talk to Eddie about it, late one night, when the others are asleep. He admits he's scared too, says he sees his old dog in his dreams, running in circles. You both laugh, a shaky sound, and it feels like a confession. You're still fighting, still moving forward, because that's what the squad does. But the weight's heavier now, not just the gear or the cold, but the things you carry in your head. You grip your rifle, touch that dime, and tell yourself you'll make it. You have to, for Eddie, for Henry, for the kid you used to be. The war's not over, but you're starting to wonder if you'll ever leave it behind, even if you make it home. You're standing in a muddy street, the air thick with the smell of wet earth and something new. Hope, maybe, or just the absence of gunfire. It's May 8, 1945, VE Day, and the war in Europe is over. The Germans have surrendered, and the news crackles through the radio like a miracle. Around you, soldiers cheer, some firing rifles into the sky, others hugging like they've forgotten how. Your squad's here, Eddie, Henry, the others grinning but weary, their faces etched with the months you've survived together. The village you're in, somewhere in Germany, is half ruined, but today it feels alive, with locals and soldiers mingling in a strange, cautious celebration. You're not sure how to feel relief washes over you, but it's tangled with something heavier, like grief you can't name. Victory in Europe is a big deal, no question. A mainstream fact. V-Day marked the unconditional surrender of Nazi Germany, ending the European theatre of World War II after nearly 6 years of conflict. With over 16 million American troops having served by this point, you've been part of that machine, pushing through Normandy, the Bulge, and countless muddy fields. Now, it's done, and you're standing here, your rifle slung over your shoulder, feeling like you've run a marathon only to find the finish line's not what you expected. You thought you'd be jumping for joy, but your legs are too tired, your heart too full of ghosts. The celebration's a mix of chaos and quiet moments. Locals bring out homemade wine, and you take a sip from a chipped mug, the taste sharp and warm. A quirky tidbit. Some soldiers got so caught up in V-Day festivities they traded their helmets for local hats, wearing them like souvenirs of peace. You see Eddie trying on a battered fedora, striking a pose like he's in a Hollywood flick. You laugh, calling him Bogart on a budget, and he tosses you a mock salute. It's a fleeting lightness, but it doesn't erase the weight of what you've seen: Tommy's absence, the hospital tents, the shadows in your dreams. Historians still argue whether V-Day brought closure or just shifted the pain for soldiers like you, many of whom faced redeployment to the Pacific or the long road of readjusting at home. You're not thinking that far ahead. You're just trying to process the quiet. No artillery, no patrols, just voices and laughter, though it feels fragile, like it could break with a single shot. You walk through the village, past kids playing in the rubble, their giggles strange after months of screams. A woman hands you a flower, a wilted daisy, and you tuck it into your pocket next to your sister's dime. It's not much, but it's something to hold on to. Your squad finds a corner in a half-standing cafe, the table's wobbly but the company's solid. You sit with Eddie and Henry, sharing a bottle of whatever the locals scavenged. You toast to survival, to Tommy, to the diner you'll never open. The wine's sour, but it's better than K rations, and you joke about adding it to your imaginary menu Eau de Victory, served with a side of mud. Henry chuckles, his cough almost gone now, and says he'll stick to apple cider when he gets home. You nod, picturing his farm, wondering if you'll ever see your own again. But the joy's not clean. You see it in the other's eyes, Eddie's too quick smile, Henry's faraway stare. You've all lost something, whether it's friends or the person you were before the war. You pull out that photo of your family, the picnic one, and trace their faces. You're alive, but you're not whole. The village hums with celebration, but you feel like you're watching it from a distance, like you're still in that trench, waiting for the next shell. You joke with Eddie that you'll need a parade to feel normal again, and he says, "Parade? I just want a nap." You laugh, but you get it. As night falls, the stars come out, clearer than you've seen in months. You lean against a wall, the daisy in your hand, and think about home. Victory's here, but it's bittersweet, like biting into an apple and finding it's half rotten. You're not fighting anymore, but you're not free yet either. The war's left its mark, and you're starting to wonder if it'll ever fade. You're on a troopship again, the Atlantic stretching endlessly around you, its waves gentler now than when you crossed it heading to war. It's late 1945, and you're going home, the European fight behind you. The ship's deck is crowded with soldiers, their faces a mix of exhaustion and quiet hope, but the air feels lighter than it did on the way over. The smell of salt and diesel is familiar, but there's no U-boat threat now, just the hum of the engines and the soft chatter of men dreaming of what's next. Your gear's lighter too, no ammo pouches, just a duffel with a few letters, that daisy from VE Day, and your sister's dime still hanging from your dog tags. You're heading back to the States, but the war's not done with you yet. Its shadows cling like damp wool. The journey home is strange, a limbo between the life you knew and the one you're not sure you'll fit into anymore. A mainstream fact: by late 1945, the US Army was demobilizing millions of soldiers, with over 7 million returning home by year's end, many struggling to readjust after years of combat. You stand at the railing, watching the horizon, your hands raw from the cold. The ship's not as cramped as the one that took you to Europe, but it's still a floating sardine can, and you're bunked below deck with Eddie and Henry, the last of your squad. You're all quieter now, the jokes fewer, the silence is longer. Sleep's no easier here than in the trenches. You lie in your hammock, the ship's sway rocking you, but your dreams are jagged flashes of Normandy's beaches, the bulges snow, Tommy's laugh cut short. You wake sweating, clutching that dime, and wonder if you'll ever sleep through the night again. A quirky tidbit. Some returning soldiers kept their dog tags on for months, even years, like a reflex they couldn't shake. You catch yourself touching yours, the metal warm from your skin, and wonder if you'll ever take it off. Eddie notices one night and says, "You planning to wear that to your wedding?" You grin, muttering, "Only if the bride's okay with it." But the humour feels like a habit, not a joy. Historians still argue whether the rapid demobilization helped soldiers heal or left them adrift in a world that didn't understand their scars. You're starting to feel the latter. The ship's crew tries to keep you busy card games, lectures about re-entering civilian life, even a talent show where Henry tries harmonica and sounds like a dying cat. You laugh, telling him he's better off sticking to farming, and he flips you off, but his eyes are grateful for the normalcy. You play poker with Eddie, betting cigarettes you don't smoke anymore, and talk about what's waiting back home. He wants to open a garage. You mention that diner, but it feels like a ghost of an idea now. The days blur, marked by meals that are better than K-rations but still taste like cardboard. You eat in the mess hall, surrounded by soldiers swapping stories of home wives, kids, jobs they might not want. You pull out your family's photo, the picnic one, and wonder if they'll recognize you. You're leaner, harder, with eyes that don't smile as easy. You write a letter, telling your mum you're coming home, but you don't mention the nightmares or the way you jump at loud noises. You seal it, hoping it reaches her before you do, hoping it prepares her for the stranger you've become. As the ship nears the States, you see land, a faint green line that makes your chest tighten. You stand with Eddie and Henry, watching it grow, and you feel something like hope, but it's fragile, like that daisy in your pocket. You're not sure what home will be, but you know it won't be the same. The war's over, but it's still inside you, in the way you scan crowds for threats, the way you grip that dime like it's your anchor. You're almost there, but you're not home yet, not really. The sea grows calmer as the ship glides closer to port, and you let your thoughts drift, soft and slow, like the waves lapping against the hull. You're tired, bone deep, but there's a warmth in knowing you'll soon see familiar streets, hear your sister's laugh, taste your mum's cooking. The war's a heavy coat you'll carry for a while, but it's okay to set it down, just for a moment, and let the horizon cradle you. Picture your bed, the fan humming softly, the stars outside your window winking like old friends. You're safe now, drifting on the edge of sleep, the world gentle and quiet. Let the memories fade, just for tonight, and rest.